Hi there, and welcome to a project video where you'll build and deploy a modern React 18 fitness exercises app. With the functionality to choose exercise categories and specific muscle groups, browse more than 1,000 exercises with practical examples, pagination, exercise details, pulling related videos from YouTube, displaying similar exercises, and much more. Gold's Gym is the best React fitness app that you can currently find on YouTube and on the entire internet. Alongside building this phenomenal project that you can put on your portfolio, in this video, you'll also learn advanced React best practices such as folder and file structure and hooks. You'll also learn how to create a beautiful user interface using Material UI. And most importantly, you'll learn how to fetch data from unlimited sources using RapidAPI. Essentially, you'll become the master of working with APIs. So keep watching and I'll teach you how you can build this amazing application in just one video completely for free. In the end, we'll also deploy the app so you can share it with your friends, put it on your portfolio, and get a job. Before we dive into the project, I have an incredibly important announcement for you. As you might know, for the past 8 months, we've been working on something big, and that day finally came. We've finalized a custom platform where you'll be able to learn by building even better and more professional projects. The video you're watching right now on YouTube is great, and it will enhance your coding abilities. But if you're looking for additional help and want to create meaningful projects that showcase your skills to reputable companies, JS Mastery Pro is for you. By using the link in the description, a special YouTube code will automatically be applied for you during checkout. So, since you are a real YouTube fan, you're getting the biggest discounts. With 2 project-based courses and a masterclass focused on providing you with groundbreaking projects to impress your potential clients and employers, JS Mastery Pro will teach you the technologies needed to land your dream high-paying job that you can enjoy for many years to come. Once again, the link is in the description, and now let's go onto today's video. Before creating a folder for our project code, we must first visit RapidAPI. The link is going to be down in the description. The making of this entire app is possible only due to RapidAPI because we're using their Exercises DB API. This API is just one of thousands of APIs available on their API hub. You're going to learn how to use most of the endpoints from this API, like how to get exercises by ID, by target muscle, and by equipment. And finally, we're going to use one more API from their platform, which is called the YouTube Search and Download. This API is going to allow us to fetch exercise videos straight from YouTube. So, to be able to use these APIs, make sure to use the RapidAPI link in the description, and then you can click Sign Up or Log In. In this case, I'm going to log in since I already have an account. You can log in with Google, GitHub, Facebook, or your regular email. Once you're in, you'll be redirected to RapidAPI's hub, where you can find thousands of APIs. Down in the description, you can also find the finished code for this project. If you at any point get stuck, I would recommend that you browse the finalized code, compare it with the code that you have, and then that way try to debug. I'm sure you're going to be successful. With that said, let's dive straight into the code. To get started with the development of our great exercises application, we're going to start from scratch, as we always do on JavaScript Mastery. I'm going to create a new folder on our desktop and name it gym_exercises. Once you've done that, you can open up an empty Visual Studio Code window or any other code editor that you prefer. Then you can simply drag and drop the folder into Visual Studio Code. Once we've done that, we can make use of Visual Studio Code's integrated terminal by going to View and then Terminal. We can clear it, and then we can initialize our React application by typing npx create-react-app and then /. Of course, make sure that you have Node downloaded and installed on your device to make sure that this works. And we can simply press enter. This process usually takes just about a minute, so I'm gonna pause this video and I'll be right back. And once our app has been initialized, you can notice that we have a few new files and folders right here. The most important folder right here is our source folder. This is where our entire application will be. So what I always like to do with Create React Apps is delete the source folder and then create a new one, because there were a few files that we don't necessarily need. So let's simply create a new folder and name it src. Once we have it, every React application needs to have a few necessary files. And the first one is index.js. Index.js is the file where we connect our application to the DOM. So we can import React from React. We can also import React DOM from React-DOM. And now that we have that, we can say const root is equal to React DOM dot create root, and then pass in the document dot get element by ID, and then simply say root like this. This is an addition that we're doing because we're using the newest version of React, version 18. Now that we have our root, we can call the root.render. And inside of there, we're going to simply pass our self-closing app component. This app hasn't yet been declared, so let's simply import it by saying import app from /app. And of course, we don't yet have it. So what we can do is create a new file called app.js inside of our source folder. To create our application, we can use a great snippet called RAFCE. This is going to create a React arrow function export component, like this. If what we've just done seemed like magic to you, you most likely don't have the right extension installed. So go to Extensions, type ES7 Plus, and install the ES7 Plus React Redux React Native snippets. Once you do that, you can type RAFCE, and this code is going to be automatically populated for you. With that said, we now have our index, which is currently rendering just this app right here, so we can put it in one line. And we also have our app.js. Great. If we were to run this right now, everything would work. But before we do that, let's make sure that we install all of the necessary dependencies that we'll use throughout this project. To make sure that you can watch this video many years after it has been released, we're going to go to package.json, and down in the description, you'll be able to find a GitHub gist containing the exact versions of dependencies you need. You can simply find it below and then override the current dependencies that you have. This is going to make sure to install the exact same versions of dependencies as I'm using in this video, so you can follow along without any interruptions. To install these dependencies, go to View and then Terminal, and then run npm install --legacy -peer -deps, and simply run that command. This is going to install, again, the exact same versions of dependencies for you. This process takes about a minute, so I'm gonna pause this video and we'll be right back. There we go, our dependencies have been installed. There are some vulnerabilities, but that's not our concern right now. We're here to create this great project and make sure that we don't run into any errors while doing so. And as you can notice, we no longer have those squiggly warning lines. Everything is properly installed. So with that said, we can now try running our application for the first time by running npm start. This is going to start our application on localhost 3000. And there we go, application started successfully. And if you go to localhost 3000, you can notice that we have our app right here. So now the setup is properly done and we are ready to start implementing the code. To make sure that we can code this application without any interruptions throughout the whole duration of the course, I'm gonna give you access to a CSS file containing some basic styling, as well as the assets so that we can use the images later on. So let's start with the CSS. You can create a new file called app.css. And down below in the description, there's going to be a GitHub gist containing some basic styles. There isn't any logic happening here, mostly just positioning of specific elements on the page. But for most of the layout, we'll be of course using Material UI. This file is mainly some background colors and changing the fonts. We can now import that file inside of our app.js by saying import./app.css. And of course, we're gonna also need the assets folder. So below this lecture, inside of that same GitHub gist, you'll be able to find a link to a zipped assets folder. Unzip it and simply paste it inside of the source. In there, we'll have some icons as well as some images. There we go. So this is going to allow us to simply use them later on when we need them. And with that said, we are ready to start coding out our application. We can of course start with our app.js. Inside of here, we're going to import route and routes. And that is coming from react-router-dom. We're going to use this to route between our homepage and our exercise details page. And we're going to also import a box component, which is coming from add-mui/material. A box is essentially just a div with some shading and colors. Now, inside of our app, we can wrap our entire app with a box, and we're going to give the width of 400 to that box, like this. Now, inside of that box, we want to render our Navbar component. We haven't yet created it, so for now, we're just going to say Navbar as a text. And then we want to show some routes below our Navbar. More specifically, there will be two routes. So the first route is going to be a self-closing component that's going to have the path of just /. And it's going to have the element, which is going to be rendered once somebody visits the /. That's going to be the home component, like this. Now, of course, we haven't yet created the home component, but we will soon. And then the second route is going to look the same as the first one. It's going to have the path equal to /exercise/:ID. That means that this ID right here is going to be dynamic. It doesn't have to be just /exercise/:ID. It can be 1, 2, 3, or any other number, and that's going to be dynamically rendered inside of our exercise detail component. So the element, therefore, is going to be exercise detail as a self-closing component. And we're going to also turn this navbar into a self-closing component as well. So now we have three components that we have to import inside of our app. So let's go ahead and create them inside of the components folder. Right-click the source, create a new folder called components folder. Inside of our components, we can first create a navbar.js, and we can run RAFCE, which is automatically going to generate that component. And when it comes to the two other components, these are actually going to be pages because they contain more components inside of them. So let's create a new folder inside of the source called pages. There, we can create a new file called home.js. We can again run RAFCE to create a structure of that home. And we can also create a new component called exercise detail.js. And we can again run RAFCE. Now we can go back to app and we can import these three components. So we can say import exercise detail from /pages/exercise detail. We can repeat the process by importing home from /pages/home. And finally, we can import the navbar from /components/navbar. And we're gonna also need the footer, so we can do that right now as well. Footer is going to be a component. So let's go to our components and create a new footer.js component, run RAFCE, go back to the app, and import the footer right below our navbar. There we go. Now we have the basic structure of our application. I know that we wrote a lot of code and we haven't seen any changes in our website, but this was necessary because now we have different routes, we can switch between them, and we have the basic layout completely set up. There are two more things to finalize the layout, and that is adding the SX property right here, which is going to be width On extra large devices is going to be 1488 pixels. So we're now making sure that this website is responsive on larger devices. And also we're going to have the M is equal to auto, which stands for margin auto. Material UI allows us to do that on the box component. And since we're using the routes and the route, there's just one more thing that we have to do inside of the index.js component. We can go to the index.js and import the browser router, which is coming from React Router DOM. We have to wrap our app right here with the browser router so that we can actually use those routes. So we have the browser router there and a closing browser router component as well. And once finalized, that's going to look like this. Great. Our index.js is now finalized. Our app.js has the basic structure. Once we are on the /, we should be able to see our home component. So let's close all of our files and just open up the home page. Now, if we go back to localhost 3000, that we now have a navbar, the home, and the footer. The reason why we only have these text elements is because we only have divs inside of these components: navbar, footer, and home. So what do you say? Let's start with implementing our navigation bar, and then we're going to continue with our entire home component. Great job so far, and we're just getting started. To start implementing our navbar, we can put our browser side by side by the editor so that we can see the changes that we make live. There we go. On the left side, we have our code editor, and on the right side, we can see the changes we're making. So let's start with our navbar. First, we can import the link component coming from React-Router-DOM. And we can also import something known as a stack coming from add-mui/material. If you haven't used Material UI before, it's a great UI kit. It allows you to create great looking websites incredibly quickly and professionally. So let's learn about what stack is. A simple Google search on Material UI stack is going to lead us to the stack component. It says right here, the stack component manages the layout of immediate children along the vertical or horizontal axis. So essentially, if you need some kind of a menu or a list of items looking like this or like this, you can use a stack. Material UI is great, and whenever I use some new components in this video, if you're not sure what those mean, simply go to MUI documentation and search for those components right here. As you can see, we have the box, and you can learn what props can you pass to a box. I always encourage all of the developers that watch my videos to learn on their own. The documentation is your best friend, and that is also what I teach on JS Mastery Pro. Just recently, we launched our platform, including 2 project-based courses. We're going to have Filmpire, which is built entirely using Material UI. So if you want to improve your knowledge with Material UI even further, then this is the course for you. If you're interested in Web3 development, then I would suggest checking out the Build an NFT Marketplace course. With that said, let's get back to our video. Now we have the link and the stack, and we need to also import our logo. So we can say import logo from /assets/images/logo.png. And let's start creating our navbar. We're going to render a stack component right here. And inside of the stack, we're going to have a link component. Inside of that link, we're going to have a self-closing image tag. And it's going to have a source equal to logo. Let's save it, and let's go back to our React app. And let's just add a to property to our link, pointing to simply /. That's going to make our logo visible. Let's make it a bit smaller by giving it an alt equal to logo. And more importantly, let's give it styles equal to width is 48 pixels, like this. Height is also going to be set to 48 pixels. And finally, the margin is going to be set to 0 and then 20 pixels on left and right. Of course, we're zoomed in quite a lot, so that's why it is blurry. If we reset, you can notice it's looking good. Now, below that link, we're going to have one more stack right here. So we can say stack, and inside of that stack, we're going to have two links. So let's simply add the first link. This is going to be link to simply /, and it's going to say home. Below that link, we're going to have an anchor tag. So let's create it right here. And this anchor tag is going to have an href equal to exercises. We're going to use this to scroll down this page later on. We can also give it a style equal to text decoration is equal to none. Also color is equal to something like #3a1212. I found this color to look really good. And let's also say exercises. There we go. So now we have home and we also have exercises. Let's style our link just a bit. So we can go to our link and say style. Let's give it a text decoration to none as well. Let's also give it a color of hash or #3a1212. And finally, let's give it a border bottom of 3 pixels solid. And then we can specify the color FF2625. And it looks like we're just missing a comma right here. There we go. So now this looks more like a navigation bar. Let's also style our stack a bit. We're going to add a few properties. Direction is equal to row. There we go. Let's also give it a gap equal to 40 pixels. Let's set the font size to be equal to 24 pixels. And let's also set align items to be equal to flex end, like this. There we go. So now this is already looking just a bit better, but of course we still cannot see the full vision of the navigation bar. To do that, let's style our initial wrapper stack. Right here, we can also give it a direction is equal to row. There we go. We can also give it a justify content equal to space dash around. We can give it the SX, which is additional styles properties of gap on small devices like this. And this is a really cool thing about Material UI. It allows you to do responsiveness right out of the box. Let's set it to 122 pixels. And then on extra small devices, XS, let's do 40 pixels. So now the gap is going to change based on the width of the device. We can also do something else besides the gap, and that is changing the margin top, so empty, and then we can open a new block again, and we can say on small devices, 32 pixels, and then on extra small devices, 20 pixels should be fine. There we go. So now this is looking more like a navigation bar. If we expand this a bit, you can notice it expands nicely and also it retracts nicely as well. So this is looking good for our navigation bar so far. We can also give it a style right here of justify content, which is going to be set to none. There we go. We want to keep everything at the start. And finally, let's also give it a px as padding x-axis. That's going to be 20 pixels. There we go. So now we have our navigation bar, and we can also look at the finished site. There we go. On the finished site, you can see that we have the logo and those two links right here because the image is being shown on the right side. With that said, we are done with the navigation bar, and we can proceed with the second component, which is going to be our home. So let's open up the pages and then home.js. Inside of our home, we're going to import the use state coming from React, because in here we'll be dealing with some logic. And we're going to also import the box component coming from add MUI/material. Now, inside of our home, we'll be using many other components. So first, let's wrap everything with a box. And then inside of there, we're going to divide it into 3 more components. The first one is going to be the hero banner, which is this part right here with the text. Then we're going to have the search exercises component, also a self-closing tag, which is going to be this search right here. And then we're going to have the exercises. There we go. So first we have the hero, then we have the search, and then finally the exercises themselves. Great. So of course we have to create those three components. And let's start as we always do in the components folder. I'm going to create the hero banner.js and run RAFCE in there. We can repeat the process. That's going to be search exercises.js and again run RAFCE. And finally, we're going to repeat the process for the last component on our list, which is the exercises themselves. So exercises, let's make sure to spell that properly. There we go, and .js, and again run RAFCE right here. Now we can import those three components right here. To import them, we can say import exercises from /components/exercises. And we can repeat or duplicate this 2 times. The second time is going to be search exercises. And the third time, we're going to say hero banner. There we go. So now if we go back to our app, you can notice that we have our navigation bar, and then we have the hero banner, search exercises, and then the exercises themselves. So of course, the next step is to jump into the hero banner and start implementing that component. Inside of there, we'll be using 3 material UI components: the box, the stack, and then the typography. And these are coming from add/MUI/material. We have already used the box and the stack. Typography is simply like a p tag. You can think of it as a heading or as a paragraph, just a text element with some additional styles. Let's wrap our entire div with a box, or rather make this component a box. Inside of that box, we're going to have a typography component. This typography is not going to be a self-closing tag. Rather, inside of there, we're going to say something like fitness club. And there we go. Now let's style it a bit. Let's change the color to something like #FF2625. Let's also make the font weight to be equal to 600 and increase the font size to something like 26 pixels. There we go. So this is already looking much better. Let's position our box a bit away from the navbar by giving it the SX property. And let's put this into multiple lines. Margin top on large devices, like this, is going to be set to 212 pixels. And then on extra small devices, it's going to be 70 pixels. Then we're going to also add the margin left right here. On small devices, that's going to be set to 50 pixels. So you can see how easily we can add only specific styles for specific window sizes. Great. Now we can also give it a position relative to this box. So position is equal to relative, as well as P is equal to 20 pixels, which stands for padding. Now let's also add the sweat, smile, and repeat, and also check out the most effective exercises. We can do that with a few additional typographies. So below our typography, let's add another one. Typography, we're going to simply say sweat, smile. We can add a break tag and then say and repeat. There we go. And we can also duplicate this typography one more time. And in the last one, we're going to say, check out the most effective exercises. There we go. Of course, we have to style them a bit because right now this isn't looking that good. And as you know, on JavaScript Mastery, we always strive to create the best looking applications. Again, I have to mention the FilmPire application, which was a marvel of a design. We have some animations, we can change categories, and do everything else you can do in essentially a Netflix clone application. So if you haven't already, definitely make sure to check it out on jsmastery.pro. But with that said, we can quickly get back and add the styles to it to make it look better. So what we can do is add the font weight to the second typography. And that font weight is going to be Let's make it a number of 700. So there we go, just a bit bolder. Then we can also apply some additional styles like the SX property, and we can change the font size. So what we can do is say on large devices, the font size can be 44 pixels. And then usually on smaller devices or on extra small devices, it can be 40 pixels. So just a bit smaller. There we go. And we can do a similar thing for the check out the most effective exercises. We can set the font size to be equal to 22 pixels. We can also change the line height, like this, of course, to be equal to 35 pixels. There we go. So this is already looking more like it. Now, just below, we have to have a button, Explore Exercises, as you can see right here. So what we can do is also import a button component from MUI. And right here, we can use or call that button component. Now, the button is going to say Explore Exercises. There we go. And you can see that it doesn't look that good. But now let's actually go visit Material UI docs to figure out how we can style it. I just visited the Material UI button component, and you can see that we need the contained version. So we can simply say variant contained and add that to our button. That's going to make it look like this. But now we also have to change the color. So let's browse a bit. And there we go. We have color success, color error, but let's simply try setting our own defined color. So color, and that's going to be this one right here. If we save that and go back, you can see that that doesn't quite work. And we can open the inspect element, go to the console, and figure out where the error is. It looks like cannot read properties undefined, reading dark. So let me just remove this color right here. And it looks like that was the cause of our issue. The colors that you can pass right here are mostly the ones which correspond to specific colors like secondary, success, or error. In this case, we have a red button, so the error might be a good fit. And there we go. This is actually looking great. And to divide this from the button, we can also add a margin bottom of something like 20 to the typography above. Oh, that's definitely way too much. Something like 2 might even be enough. There we go. This is already looking so much better, but we can divide it a bit more. So let's do something like 3 instead. There we go. This is looking good. Now, this button is going to have an href equal to hash exercises. So it's going to simply scroll down on this page. And we also need an image, which is the final missing piece. We can say img, and then that's going to be source is equal to, and now we have to import that image. So we can say import hero banner image coming from /assets /images /banner.png. And we can simply use it here. Hero banner image. We can also give it an alt tag equal to banner. And we can give it a class name, which we defined in the app.css equal to hero-banner-img. Now, if we fix this right here and save it, you should be able to notice this great looking image appear right here. And this is already looking so much more like the design. That is great. Now, there's this cool little design element saying exercises here. So how do we implement that? Well, that's going to be a typography above our image. So let's go back. Let's add a typography. And that typography is going to say exercise. Now, of course, let's add some styles like font weight is going to be 600. We can also give it a color, which is going to be equal to FF2625. And we can also give it a few additional styles with the SX prop, which is going to be opacity 0.1. We want to hide it on mobile devices, so we can say display and then make that an object. On large devices, block, and then on extra small devices, none. This shows you that you don't have to dive into CSS to mess with media queries. You can do things right here inside of your JSX. And we also want to increase the font size by quite a lot. So let's say font size is equal to 200 pixels. And let's save it. You can see this huge exercises appear right here, but it looks like it should be a bit more down. There is some spacing missing from in between our typographies. So let's see why is it missing. Looks like our typography right here, containing sweat, smile, and repeat, misses the MB, which is margin bottom, of something like 23 pixels, and MT, which is margin top, of 30 pixels. So if we add that, that's going to push this down just a bit. And we can also add some more margin right here between our button. So that's going to be here, margin bottom, something like 4. There we go. So now this is really close to the design, but this button is looking just a bit better than ours. So what we can do is we can add the SX property to our button. Right here, we can say SX and change the background color to be that same color of #FF2625. There we go. So this is already looking much better. And we can also give it some padding. Like let's try with 15 pixels. That's a bit too much, so 10 might do. There we go. So now this is incredibly close to the design. Looking great. With that said, we are done with the start of our homepage, but we're moving to more exciting stuff, which is actually searching for exercises, targeting specific muscle groups, and showing these exercises right here. So let's get to that right away. We can go back to our homepage and go to the search exercises. In here, we can first import a few stuff, then do this part, which is the visual part, and then finally connect it so that it actually works and it searches for new exercises. Let's start by first importing the use effect, as well as the use state hooks from React. We're gonna also need to import the box, a button, stack, text field, which is essentially an input, and finally the typography. And that's coming from add_MUI/material. Now we have almost everything we need to start creating the JSX part. So first of all, we're going to wrap everything with a stack component. That stack is going to have a property of align items is equal to center, and also MT for margin top is 37 pixels. It's also going to have a justify content like this equal to center. And finally, padding or P is just equal to 20 pixels. Now, if we save that, you can notice that now we have some padding right here. And below, we can add a typography. So let's say typography. It's not going to be a self-closing component. Rather, we're going to say something like awesome exercises you should know. So I'm going to simply paste that here. And we're going to add a BR or a break tag in between. So now if we go back, you can see that right here. But of course, we can style it a bit. So let's give it a font weight of 700. There we go. Let's also give it the SX property equal to font size. On large devices, that can be set to 44 pixels. And then on extra small, we can bring it down a notch to 30 pixels. Also, let's say the margin bottom or MB is going to be 50 pixels and text align is going to be set to center. Now, if you save that, this looks more like it. There we go. Now, below our typography, we're going to have a box element, and that box is going to have a position equal to relative, as well as margin bottom is equal to 72 pixels. Inside of that box, we're going to have our text field. That text field is a self-closing tag, but it is going to have quite a few properties. Let's give it first a height of 76 pixels. Let's give it a value because every input needs to have a value. For now, that's going to be an empty string. Every input also needs to have an onChange property. And for now, that's going to be an empty callback function. We're going to fill it soon enough. We can also add a placeholder, something like search exercises. And we can also give it a type, which is going to be equal to text. Now, if we save that, you can see our input right here, which is looking great. But we can also give it some additional styles. So let's add the SX property at the top. Let's space it out in multiple rows. And let's say input. We want to style the input part of the text field. And we want to give it a font weight, like this, of 700. Then we also want to set the border to be set to none. And we also want to set the border radius to be set to something like 4 pixels. Now, if we save that, you can notice this is looking a bit different. Now, outside of styling our input, so all of this was simply to style the input, and we can kind of position that so you can see it more clearly. We had the font weight inside of the input, we had the border, and then we had the border radius. But now we are outside of the input and we want to style and we want to change the width. More specifically, on large devices, the width is going to be 1170 pixels, and on extra small devices, the width is going to be 350 pixels. There we go. So now it's actually huge. And what we also want to do is add the background color to be equal to, I think white is going to be fine. So let's do FFF. Of course, we are missing a comma right here. And finally, we also want to give it a border radius of something like 40 pixels. There we go. So now if we compare those two, you can see that this is more like it. If we increase the width, it's looking even better. And on small devices, it's looking great as well. There we go. So we can also add a button below this text field right away. That button is going to not be a self-closing tag, but it will have a class name equal to search-btn. And it's going to say, you can guess it, search. Now, if you save that, we can see search right here, but we have to apply some other styles to it. So let's again open up that SX property. There we go. And first, we want to change the BG color like this. And that's going to be #FF2625. There we go. We also want to change the color of the text. So we can say right here, color is going to be #FFF, which stands for white. We want to set the text transform to be set to none. We also want to change the width of the button. If we are on the large device, we want to make it around 175 pixels, and on extra small, 80 is going to be more than enough. If we check it out, this is looking good. We also want to change the font size like this. On large devices, 20 pixels will be great, and on smaller ones, 14 will be just fine. Finally, we want to change the height of the button. So let's say height is going to be something like 56 pixels. We're missing a comma right there. And also we want to change the position, which is going to be set to absolute. We are doing that so that the button comes to the right side of our screen. Now we can also decrease the width of our text field a bit to something like 1000 pixels. And now it's barely fitting, so we can do something less, like 800 should be enough. There we go. So this is looking good already. Now on smaller devices, you can see this is looking good as well. So this is for tablets and even smaller devices like mobile phones. There we go. So let's expand it a bit so we can see the image. There we go. And now we have our search. The search is going a bit to the right, which isn't happening on the live side. So let's figure out what's happening with this empty space right here. I'm going to go to inspect, and I'll try to expand this a bit and see where is this space coming from. Just by going over this, it doesn't seem to be obvious. Let's go into this div, and Yeah, it's not that obvious, but this is what happens when you're developing websites. It's possible that I missed something, so let's slowly try to figure it out together. And that's the thing that I like sharing most with you, the bugs, problems, and errors that happen. A lot of YouTubers simply go past that or cut that out from recording. Today, we're going to do that together and figure out why this text is not appearing in the center, rather it's appearing a bit more to the right. So let's figure it out. Well, since we are using absolute positioning, we simply have to add the right property right here to this button and set it to 0. That way, it's going to appear like it's centered. So we have our input and we have our search right here. So everything is looking good so far. Now, of course, we want to figure out the logic for searching the exercises. So before displaying them and displaying these categories right here, what we can do is deal with the logic. So this is the first time that we're actually diving in using the state, using the use effect, and interacting with the RapidAPI to fetch all of the latest and greatest exercises that you can use to improve your body. So to get started with that, what we can do is handle the search. Right now, our button is not doing anything and our input is not doing anything as well. So first of all, let's add a new use state at the top. We can say use state, use the state snippet, and call the state search, and set search at the start is going to be set to an empty string. Now, inside of our input right here, or a text field, we can change the value to be search, and also on change, we can simply say set search is equal to e.target.value to lowercase, because while we're searching for something, we want to make sure that we don't look in changes in terms of typing. If you search for squat, it should be the same as squat with a capital S or with a lowercase s. So now we're managing the state of what we want to search for. So let's add an onClick on our button right here. OnClick is equal to handle search. And this is a function that we are going to create right now. So scrolling a bit up, we can create that new function, const handle search. It's going to be an arrow function. And it's also going to be asynchronous because we have to fetch some data from it. Async simply means that this function is going to take some time. And in most cases, that means that it's going to pull some data from the API. If you want to learn async await in depth, then our movie application is great because we're fetching a lot of movie data. Once again, the link is in the description. So first, we want to check if the search exists. So if somebody actually typed something in. If the search does exist, then we need to fetch the exercises data. And that's going to be equal to await. And then we're going to create a special fetch data function. This function doesn't yet exist, so I'm going to comment this line out so that we don't get any errors. But now is the time that we create this special fetch data utility function. So let's get to it. To keep our code tidy, we can create this fetch data function in a new file. So let's create a new folder inside of the source folder called utils, short for utility functions. These are the functions that we'll be reusing across our code base. And let's create a new file called fetchdata.js. This is where we're going to make a connection with RapidAPI. So what we can do is we can say export const fetch data, which is going to be an async function looking like this. It's going to accept two parameters. The first one is going to be the URL, and the second one is going to be the options. Now, inside of there, we can say const response is equal to await, and we're going to use the built-in fetch API. We want to fetch the URL and provide the additional options. So that's going to look something like this. Now, if we use just fetch and not Axios, we also have to extract the data by saying const data is equal to await response.json. And then finally, we simply want to return the data. Now, this is an abstraction of a function that's going to actually fetch the data, because you can see we have the URL and options as parameters, but we didn't pass real data. So we don't have the actual URL that we need to call. So how are we going to get to that? Well, if we go to RapidAPI and search for exercise DB, you should be able to find this rectangle right here by Justin, a great API, and you can click right here to subscribe to this API. It is entirely free for up to 500 requests a month, and you're gonna get access to all of these different endpoints that you can see right here. But first of all, we have to copy our options. So let's simply copy this part right here under code snippets, and let's put that at the top by saying export const exercise options is equal to, and then we can just use the object from here. That's gonna be method get. In this case, we won't be needing the URL right here. And then we're gonna need the RapidAPI host as well as the RapidAPI key. Now, you've seen my key and I'm okay with that. I wanna share everything with you guys. But I would recommend that you hide yours from people that wish you harm. So what we wanna do here is we want to take that key and put it in something known as environment variables. So let's create a new file called .env. The code that you put here is going to be private to you and you only. So let's say react underscore app underscore rapid underscore API underscore key. And that's going to be equal to the key that you just copied. Now, for this key to be populated, what we have to do is open up our terminal, stop it from running by pressing Ctrl C and then Y, and then rerun our application. That's how our key is going to be populated. Now what we can do is, instead of simply typing out the entire key right here, we can use process.env .react underscore app underscore rapid underscore API underscore key. Now nobody knows our key, but it is being used right here. So we have exercise options, we have our fetch data, and we're exporting that. We can go back to our search, and now we can actually use that fetch data function. Now we have something weird right here. I don't think I've imported that, so we're going to delete that. But what we do need to import is the fetch data function. So we can import it by saying import. We're going to need the exercise option, or options rather, as well as the fetch data. And that is coming from /utils/fetch data. So what do we want to call? We want to call the fetch data function. And remember, the first parameter is the actual URL. So we can say https://exercisedb.p.rapidapi.com. And then /. And then if you're wondering how I got that, you can see the URL right here. And then we're specifically looking for exercises under a body list part. So you can copy the entire URL straight from here and paste it there. There we go. And then the second thing is to pass the exercise options. These options are going to authorize you to make the request because we added our own API key right here. So exercises data. Now what we can do with this data is console log it. So if we do console log exercises data, we can add that right here and then go back to our React application, inspect, and then open up the console. At the start, there's going to be nothing in the console, but if we search for something and click search, we'll be able to see 10 different categories. But we don't need the categories. We want to search for specific exercises. So we'll modify our URL just a bit. We want to simply search for exercises. If we save that and click search one more time, we get a total of more than 1,000 exercises. Isn't that crazy? You can see that they're divided by a body part, equipment, GIF, name, target, and so on. Now we want to apply some search functionality. And we can do that like this. I'm going to expand our code just a bit. And right here, we're going to say const searched exercises. And that's going to be equal to exercise data dot filter. Inside of that filter, we need to pass in a callback function where we get each specific exercise. And we want to check if exercise.name.toLowerCase dot includes the search term we're looking for. Or maybe the name doesn't include the search. But what if the body part or the target include that? Maybe somebody searches for back and there aren't back exercises, but back is a muscle group. So we can copy this and paste it a few times. 3 more times to be exact. We can search for exercise.name. We can search for exercise.target, exercise.equipment, and also exercise.bodyPart. We just made our exercises data 4 times stronger because we're applying all of these things in our search query. Great. So what do we do with those search exercises? Well, let's add them to the state so that we can later on display it. We can create a new use state field. That's going to be exercises and also set exercises right here. At the start, that's going to be set to an empty array. Once we're done with the search, the only thing we want to do is, first of all, clear the search. So we can say set search is equal to an empty string. And then we want to set the exercises to be equal to the searched exercises. There we go. So now we're handling almost everything. But of course, we actually have to make use of these exercises and show them somewhere. That's going to be the next part that we're going to do. But before we search for these exercises, if you look at our code, it seems that the exercises come after the actual categories. So let's get these categories to show up first. We can do that by creating a new use effect to fetch the categories as soon as our page loads. So we have a use effect with a callback function, and we want to call it only at the start, which means that our dependency array is going to be empty. There, we want to create a new function called const fetch exercises data, and that's also going to be an async function. There, we want to get the data about all body parts. So we can say const body parts data is equal to, let's change this to parts, not parties, and that's going to be equal to await fetch data. Now we already have the function. We can copy the starting part right here, but we're going to add one additional thing to exercises, and that's going to be body part list. And we also need to pass the exercises options. So you can see how easy it is now that we already have created the fetch data and exercises options utilities. Now, what do we do once we get that data? We simply set body parts to be equal to, first of all, and then we also want to spread all the body parts that we got. So that's going to be body parts data. There we go. And of course, we want to close that right here. Now we're going to need an additional state, so we can create a use state field, body parts, and also set body parts, which is at the start going to be an empty array. Now, when do we want to call this fetch exercises data function? Well, immediately. So we want to call it as soon as the app loads. Now that we have the data about our body parts, we can actually display them in this nice list. That list is going to be a new component. So right here below our box, we can create a new additional box. This box is going to have the SX equal to position relative. Also, it's going to have a width of 100%, and it's going to have a padding of 20 pixels. Inside of there, we want to render a new component called horizontal scrollbar. That is going to be a self-closing component to which we're going to pass the data, which is equal to not fetch exercises data, but rather body parts. There we go. That's going to be all that we need for now. But of course, now is the time that we actually create that horizontal scroll bar. So we can go inside of the components and create a new horizontal scrollbar.js component. We can run RAFCE in there to quickly get it up and running. And then back inside of the search exercises, we can import that component. Import horizontal scrollbar from /horizontal scroll bar. Now, if we save that and go back to our app, you can see that we have the horizontal scroll bar right here, but we cannot see these great looking cards. To get to these cards, we can, of course, implement them inside of the horizontal scroll bar. We already know that our horizontal scroll bar accepts the data prop, so we can immediately loop over that data. Right here, I'm going to open a dynamic block of code and say data.map. We're going to get each individual item, and for each item, we want to return a box. That box is, of course, coming from import box from add_MUI/material. Not icons material, just material. That box, if we render it correctly, there we go, is going to look like this. And we are missing one more parenthesis. That box needs to have a key since we're looping over it. So a key is going to be equal to either item.id or just the item, because later on we're going to pass different things into this horizontal scroll bar. So we want to make sure that it is working as it's supposed to. We need to specify the item ID, which is going to be the same as this. So we can essentially duplicate this. Our item ID, as we said, is item ID or item, and our title is going to be the same, item ID or item. And margin is going to be set to 0 and then 40 pixels. Of course, inside of here, we want to render our body part. So what we can do is simply render the item. Now, if we save this, scroll below, you can see we have all, back, cardio, chest, lower arms, and all of the other categories. Now we have to turn these pieces of text into these nice, clickable, and also scrollable, great looking cards. Our body part card is going to be a separate component, so we can create it. We're going to call it exactly that, bodypart.js. And it's going to be a React component as well, so we can run RAFCE. Let's go back to our horizontal scroll bar and let's import our body part. And that will be coming from /bodypart. There we go. So now what we can do is we can render the body part component inside of our horizontal scroll bar. That's going to be right here. Instead of item, we can render the self-closing body part, and we can pass the item to it. That way, we'll be able to render it differently. We can also pass the body part, which we're going to pass through the props. So body part is equal to body part, and also the set body part is equal to set body part. These are some properties that we're going to pass through props. So what we can do is go back to where we're calling the horizontal scroll bar, which is going to be inside of the search. And right here, we can pass the data to it, as well as the body part is equal to body part. This is going to be the selected body part, the one on which we clicked. There we go. And also, we're going to need the set body part. Once we actually do this, set body part, one thing that you can notice is that we only have body parts, plural, not a singular body part or set body part. That's because those props will be coming into our search exercises right here. They'll be coming from the home page. So what we can do is get the set exercises as well as body part, and finally set body part. All of these will be coming from the home. You can notice that we had a state declared here, but that state is actually going to get moved to our home page. Let's go back to our pages and then home. We can paste this state that we had about exercises, but we're going to also have two other states, and these are going to be as follows. Use state, that's going to be body part, and set body part, which is at the start going to be set to all. And that's going to be it. We need the body part and the exercises. The reason why we need to have these in the home is because changes in these states are going to be reflected all across our application, not just in the search exercises. They'll also be reflected in the exercises themselves. So what we can do now is we can pass the set exercises to be equal to set exercises. We can also pass the body part right here. Body part is equal to body part. And finally, we can pass the set body part to be equal to set body part. Now we're passing all three of these props to our search exercises component. And we can repeat that same process for the exercises because these are shared states. So we can simply copy and paste this to exercises as well. Now both components share the same state. And if you're thinking that we could have done this using React context, you are right. If you don't feel like passing all of these props to many different components, you can use the React Context API. In this case, we just have two components, so I simply decided that we can still pass the states through props, whichever way you prefer. With that said, now we're finally properly passing the values to our horizontal scroll bar, and we're not only getting the data, we're also getting the body parts, the set body part, and that's going to be it for now. There we go. This is going to be singular. Now, of course, it's time that we go into the body part component and we can implement this great looking card. Our body part is going to have a few imports. These are going to be import stack as well as typography. And they are coming from @MUI and then /material. We can also import the icon from /assets /icons /gym.png. There we go. Now to create this great looking card, we're going to first render the stack component like this. And then inside of that stack, we're going to have an image. So we can say img, source is going to be icon, alt is going to be dumbbell. So we can say dumbbell right here. And in this case, we won't even be needing the class name. We will simply need some styles. So we can say styles is equal to width 40 pixels, as well as the height, which is going to be set to 40 pixels as well. So now we have these huge gym icons. Looks like the styles weren't applied, but we're gonna fix that really soon. Let's add additional styles to our stack. We can start by saying type of this stack is going to be equal to a button because we can click on it. We're going to align items to the center. We're going to also justify content to the center. We're going to give it a class name equal to body part -card and save that. As soon as we do that, we have great looking hoverable cards, but they don't yet look like cards. So what we have to do is add the SX property like this. And then we can get all of the props that we passed into this component. So these are going to be item. Make sure you are inside of the curly braces. Set body part. And also the body part itself. Great. So what we can do is check if the body part is triple equal to the item. In that case, we can render some specific styles. These are going to be border top, 4 pixels, solid, and then we can do that red color, which is FF2625. We can also do the background to be equal to simply white, FFF. And now let's see what do we have here. Looks like we need just one curly brace here, not two. There we go. And looks like we need to close this properly as well. And we also need what happens if the body part is not equal to the item. Let's simply have an empty string then. And we already have this great looking card. Now let's add additional styles such as border, bottom, left, radius, and let's set that to 20 pixels. Let's set the width to be equal to 270 pixels. Let's set the height to be equal to something like 280 pixels. Of course, don't forget to add commas right here and here. Let's set the cursor to be equal to pointer. And let's set the gap to be equal to 47 pixels. Now, if we save this, make sure to add all the commas. Now, this is looking just a bit better, but still not quite. These icons are too big, and only the first one seems like a card. So let's add the styles for the ones which are not currently selected. In that case, we want to set the background to be equal to #FFF. We also want to give them a border bottom left radius, which is going to be 20. We can copy the width and the height, the cursor as well, and the gap. So essentially, all of these styles are almost exactly the same. Let's paste them right here, save that. And now we have these cards right here, but only the one that is selected has the border at the top. Of course, we could have done this in a better way. We could have had straight right here an object of all the styles. And then we can find all of the styles that are the same, which is everything, I think, besides the border top. So let's add that. And then for that thing that is different, like the border top, we can check if the body part is equal to an item. If it is, then we show this. Else, we show an empty string. And with that, we can remove all of this code and only keep the one that we're using right here. Let's save it. And as you can see, everything looks the same, but it is much simpler and much easier to read. Let's just simply indent this properly. So I'm going to select all the lines and push it back a bit. And there we go. So now we have the cards, but they're still not being displayed properly. They are appearing in a line instead of appearing in a row. To change that, we can go back to our horizontal scroll bar and import a few things. These are going to be import something known as a scroll menu, as well as visibility context. And these are coming from a package that we install at the start called React-horizontal-scrolling-menu. Now we can wrap our entire application with that scroll menu. So right here, instead of the div, we're going to have a scroll menu. Let's save it. Of course, let's fix this at the bottom. And there we go. We can already scroll if you have a mouse with a horizontal scroll wheel. If not, we're missing the arrows. So how are we going to add those arrows? Well, you can simply create arrow components, which are going to be simple images with left and right arrows. Since this part is just writing a lot of code and nothing really useful is happening, I'm going to add the code for these icons down below so you can simply copy and paste it from the GitHub gist. That's going to look something like this. We'll have to import the typography as well as the use context. And then you'll have the left arrow and the right arrow that you can use. The way in which you can use them is simply pass them to the scroll menu as left arrow is equal to left arrow. There we go. And right arrow is equal to, you guessed it, right arrow. There we go. And these arrows are nothing more than a typography that has the image inside of them. So now if we go back, you can see those two, and we can actually scroll through different body part exercises. But these are now simply showing an image of a gym, and we want to be able to see which body part are we clicking on. So let's simply go back to the body part, and let's finish implementing this component. Below our image, we're going to have a typography, and this typography is going to simply render the item. As soon as we do that, you should be able to see the text, but it is being hidden or cut down by the image. So let's apply some styles. The font size is going to be 24 pixels. The font weight is going to be set to bold. The color is going to be set to #3A1212. And the text transform is going to be set to capitalize. Now, if we save that, you can see that it's still not visible because the image is hiding it. So let's see why our image is not behaving as we thought, meaning taking 40 pixels of width and height. So this is width right here, height 40 pixels. This is looking good to me, but it looks like I am missing something. So it is possible that, yep, there we go. I misspelled the style for styles. So if we fix this, now you can see we have lower legs, we have neck, upper arms, and all of the different body parts that you can train. For extra points, if you decide to work on this application on your own, find some images of each one of these muscle parts and then add them right here to make it even better. There we go. So now we have all of the different body parts, but once we click on them, nothing happens. So let's add an on click right here on our stack. So on click, we want to have a callback function, and we want to set the body part to the currently selected item. That's going to select that. There we go. What we also want to do is call the window.scroll to, and then scroll to top in an object to around 1800 pixels, also to the left of 100, and the behavior of the scroll must be smooth. There we go. So now once we click on one of these categories, we're going to scroll down to the exercises. So far, we haven't yet implemented them, but once we do, this is going to scroll to them, and it's going to send the state of the selected category back to our component that's inside of the home, and that is the exercises component. If you remember, or if you think about it, that's the next component that we need to implement. We have our great looking hero section, we have our search, we have our category filters, but we are not yet showing anything. We're not searching through exercises, nor are we able to switch between different exercise categories. So let's go to exercises and let's implement this component next. To finally start implementing our exercises, we can first import a few things inside of the exercises component. So let's import the use effect as well as the use state hooks from React. We're going to also need to import the pagination component coming from add MUI/material/pagination. And we're going to also need to import the box, stack, typography, which are coming from our regular add MUI/material. There we go. Now we also already have the utility functions. So we can import the exercise options as well as fetch data. That is the function we have already created in /utils/fetch data. That's going to be it for the imports for now. And we also are getting some things through props. Don't forget exercises, body part, and set body part. So we can put curly braces here and get the exercises, set exercises, and body part. Let's see if those are the things that we're passing through in case I made a mistake. So going back to the home, set exercises, body part, and set body part. No, I don't think that's right. I think we were supposed to pass the exercises and set exercises. So instead of the set body part, we need to pass the exercises right here. There we go. So exercises, set exercises, and then the body part. Now we can import those mentioned props, and we are ready to start implementing the JSX for our exercises. Let's go ahead and start with the JSX part as we always do. We can render a box element right here. That box is going to have an ID equal to exercises, so we can scroll to it. We're going to also give it some styles, like SX is equal to margin top. That's going to happen on large devices where we're going to set it to 110 pixels. Usually the margin top is going to be set to 50 pixels and the padding is going to be set to 20 pixels. Now, if we check it out, we only have some padding right here, but let's add our first typography. So right here, we can say typography, and we're going to say showing results. There we go. As you can see right here. Now let's make that just a bit bigger by providing the variant equal to H4. There we go, showing results. That's already looking so much better. And to increase the size just a bit, we can maybe even make that an H3. There we go. Let's also give it a margin bottom equal to 46 pixels. There we go. Now we can show the results or the exercises right here. Let's create a stack component that's going to have a direction equal to row. Let's also give it an SX property where we're going to set the gap on large devices to be equal to 110 pixels and on extra small devices to be equal to 50 pixels. We're going to also give it a flex wrap property equal to wrap and a justify content property equal to center. Now inside of there, we can map over all of our exercises. So let's simply open a new dynamic block of code and say exercises.map. We get each individual exercise as well as the index of that exercise. And for now, let's simply return the exercise dot name. There we go. Of course, let's wrap that in a paragraph so we can actually display it like this. And also we have to make this dynamic. There we go. And if we can spell that properly and actually close it as we should, looks like we're missing just one parenthesis. And now we cannot see anything. So what we can do right now is also console log the exercises to see what we're working with. So right here, console log exercises. Let's save that. Let's open up the console and reload the page. We can see that right now they are an empty array. And if we click through these categories, still an empty array. If we search for deadlift, now we get 19 results. So our search part is definitely working. And you can see the deadlift definitely works out the upper legs. Great. But instead of showing just these names of exercises, we actually want to show GIFs and show this great exercise card to show how people can do those exercises. So to implement that, we're going to create a new component. And that component is going to be called exercise card. So inside of the components, exercise card.js, we can run RAFCE. We can go back and import it right here. Import exercise card coming from /exercise card. And instead of rendering the p tag, we can render the self-closing exercise card. But of course, we're going to pass a key to it. The key is going to be equal to index. And the exercise we need to pass as well. So the exercise is going to be equal to exercise. There we go. Now we can go inside of the exercise card and we can implement this great look right here. So to start with that, we're going to import a link component because each one of our cards is actually going to be a link to the details page of that exercise, React Router DOM. And we're going to also import the button, stack, and a typography coming from add MUI /material. As I've said, each one of our cards is actually going to be a link. So our link is going to wrap everything and it's going to point to a dynamic URL of /exercise.id. There we go. And we can also give this a class name equal to exercise-card. Now you can notice that this exercise ID is not defined, and that's because we have to get the individual exercise right here from props. Of course, we have to have something in there. And for starters, we can show that GIF. So we can say image with a source is equal to exercise.gif URL. And we can also provide the alt tag exercise.name and also set the loading to be equal to lazy, which means that it isn't going to load immediately and slow down the website load. Now let's save this and there we go. Immediately, we get these great looking GIFs how to do the deadlift exercise. It looks like we can do it with cables. We can do it with the whole bar like this or with a machine. So this is looking great already. Let's style those cards just a bit. We're going to add a stack right here. And that stack is going to have a direction equal to row. Inside of there, we want to show two buttons, which won't really be buttons. in a sense that they won't be clickable, but they're going to look like this. And we're going to explain waist and abs. So what is working out during that exercise? The first button is going to have the SX property right here, equal to margin left is 21 pixels. It's also going to have a color equal to hash FFF. It's going to have a background equal to hash FFA9A9. And it's going to have a font size equal to 14 pixels, as well as a border radius equal to 20 pixels. And finally, the text transform equal to capitalize. Inside of there, we're going to render the exercise.body part. Now, if we save this, you can notice that the deadlift exercise is working out the upper legs. Now we can duplicate this button entirely. We're going to change the color a bit to something like right here, FCC757. And that's going to show the target muscle. So if we save this, you can see that this is working out glutes. This is working out the spine as well. So everything is looking good. Let's continue styling it by adding the exercise name below the stack. We can create a typography right here. That typography is going to render the exercise.name. There we go. But let's style it a bit. Let's give it a margin left equal to 21 pixels, as well as the color is going to be 000, which is black. We can also give it font weight equal to bold. And let's give it some additional styles, like margin top is 11 pixels, padding bottom is something like 10 pixels, and the text transform is set to capitalize. Now, if we save this, there we go. You can see the exercise name. Let's just increase the font size just a bit by giving it a font size equal to something like 24 pixels. There we go. Maybe 22 is going to be enough. This is looking great to me. Now, if we search for something like cable, which is a piece of equipment, and click search, we can see all exercises that use cables. So this already became a great tool for all of your workouts. And all of this is powered with an API that we found on the RapidAPI platforms, which has hundreds of thousands of phenomenal APIs that you can choose from. With that said, our exercise card is now done, and we can continue working on the exercises component. The next thing we have to implement is the pagination, because right now this is just a huge list of exercises and it's quite hard to go through it. Thankfully, using Material UI, we'll be able to implement the pagination in a simple way. We can do that right here by adding a new stack below the existing stack. That stack is going to have a margin top. So let's say margin top of around 100 pixels. Let's also say align items is equal to center. Now, what we can do is check if exercises.length is greater than 9. In that case, we want to show the pagination component. So let's render a self-closing pagination component, and let's pass a few props to it. Let's simply say something like color is going to be standard. And now I'm just wondering, can we even see that? Maybe if we scroll to the bottom, there we go. We can see the pagination right here. Let's also collapse this just a bit. And let's give it a shape, which is going to be set to rounded. There we go. If you want to know all the properties that you can pass to these components, again, just make sure to go to Material UI, search for pagination, and there you go. Now going back to our exercises, let's go back to the home page, search for something like back, go all the way down right now since we don't have the pagination. There's a lot. And we can also set the default page to be equal to 1, but I think it's 1 by default anyway. We want to set the count of pages to be equal to math.ceil to get the higher number of exercises.length divided by 9, because we have 9 exercises per page. That's going to end up being 25 pages. Then what we can do is we need to specify a page we're currently on. This is going to be a state of current page that we haven't yet created. We can also specify the onChange, which is going to be a function which we're going to call paginate, and the size is going to be set to large. Of course, now we have to create the current page state and the paginate function. To do that, we can scroll up, create a new use state that's going to say current page and set current page, and that's going to be set to 1 by default. We're going to also have a variable const exercises per page, which is going to be set to 9. We can now use this variable right here instead of this statically typed 9. Of course, we are yet to create the paginate component, so we can say const paginate, and this component is going to accept the event as well as the value. We can see that right here because this pagination component immediately passes the event, but it also passes the value of the current page that we click on. This is done behind the scenes by Material UI. So what can we do with the event and the value? Well, we can set the current page to be equal to the value. And we also want to scroll to the top of the page, so we can use the window.scroll to, and then we're going to scroll to top 1800 pixels, and behavior is going to be set to smooth. So this is going to scroll to the top of the exercises. Now, if we go forward, there we go. But it looks like we're now showing all of the exercises, which is not something that we want to do. We want to calculate only the first 9, then the next 9, and so on. So let's create a few variables. Const index of last exercise. That's going to be equal to current page times exercises per page. Let's fix that. Times exercises per page. We also need to get the index of the first exercise. That's going to be const index of first exercise is equal to index of last exercise minus exercises per page. So this is the first exercise on that new page. And we also need to get the current exercises by saying const current exercises is equal to exercises dot slice, and then we pass in the index of the first exercise and the index of last exercise. Now, instead of simply going through all of the exercises, we can simply pass the current exercises right here. If we save that, you can now see that there are only 9. Let's expand this a bit. And if we go forward, it scrolls up and we go to the next 9. So this indeed is working, and it's working great. Our pagination component is fully done, and with that, our search is done as well, because we can search for different exercises. This is perfect. Of course, we are yet to make our categories work, because now if we click, it does scroll to that section, but I don't think it populates the exercises. So that's going to be on our agenda next. So let's go ahead and fix our categories. To do that, we'll have to go into our horizontal scroll bar and then into our body part. Right here, we are on click setting the body part to be equal to item. So let's see where this set body part is coming from. It is being sent right here through the horizontal scroll bar, set body part, and we're calling that inside of the search. Set body part. There we go. Again, being passed right in. So let's check the home component as well. We're passing in the set body part. So that definitely seems to be all right. Let's go ahead and console log the body part right here to see if it is actually changing once we click on it. There we go. I'm gonna choose lower arms. Yep, changed right there. And lower legs. Yep, it is properly changing. But the exercises are not reflecting that. So most likely we have to go to where we're calling these set exercises. That's gonna be either here, set exercises, and it looks like we are calling it right there, searched exercises. But the question is, are we calling it anywhere else? Not in this file, but maybe right here, set exercises. As you can see, it is unused right here. So what we need to do is add a new use effect right below this paginate. Use effect. That's going to be a callback function. And we want to have something in the dependency array. We want to recall this anytime that the body part changes. What we want to do is we want to call the new function called fetch exercises data. That's going to be an async function right here. And first, we want to say let exercises data is equal to an empty array. Then we want to check if body part is triple equal to all, which it is at the start. Then we want to make sure the exercises data is equal to await fetch data. And now we want to fetch all the exercises. And I think we already had that somewhere. It could be inside of the search exercises. There we go. So in here we have a call for all the exercises. So let's copy this await inside of the handle search, and we can paste it right here. Await fetch data exercises / exercises, and we pass in the exercise options. Now, if the body part is not all, in that case, we want to fetch something similar. So we're going to set the exercises data to be equal to fetch, but now we're going to do exercises / body part / $, and then curly braces, and then pass in the body part right here. Of course, we need to switch this into a template string. There we go. And finally, we need to set exercises to be equal to exercises data. There we go. So now the changes in our click right here should be reflected. Let's check it out. Let's go for something like shoulders. Okay, this still seems to be legs. Let's try with something like back. Nope, that didn't do it. Interesting. And that's because we never called the fetch exercises data function. So let's simply call it right here inside of the use effect whenever the body part changes. Let's now properly call, for example, the cardio. And you can see we can do some jumping jacks or something like that. For back, we can do some pull downs. For chest, we can do some push-ups. So this is now working perfectly, as well as our search. So if we search for a squat, we can see all different ways in which we can do a squat. Apparently, there are 9 pages of 9 exercises in which we can do a squat. So that is quite interesting. And with that said, our homepage is now finalized. We have our results, we have the fully functioning search and fully functioning categories. So this is perfect. Finally, now the goal is that once we click on a specific exercise, we show the exercise details page. This enlarged view with the title, some text, explaining the target muscles, and then we're going to even pull some YouTube videos to teach people how to do that specific exercise. Finally, we're going to show some similar target muscle exercises and exercises with similar equipment. The best thing about this is that you can notice that we are reusing all of the components. We'll be reusing our exercises card as well as this entire row right here. We're going to reuse the horizontal scroll. We're going to reuse everything. And that is the beauty of React. And exactly that is what I teach in all of my videos, and especially the JS Mastery.pro courses. So I'm quite excited to get started with the exercise details page. To focus on that, we can close all of the currently open files, collapse everything, go to source, go to pages, and then exercise details. This is where we'll be spending our time from now until the end of the video. It's been great having you so far. Just keep learning, and let's go ahead and implement the exercise details page. To start with our exercise details page, we can import a few things, and that's going to be the use effect as well as the use state hook. We're going to also import something known as use params, which is coming from react-router-dom. We're going to use this to determine the ID of the exercise we're currently on so we can fetch additional data about that exercise. Then we can import the box. So import box from add MUI/material. We can also import some utility functions. So we can import exercise options as well as fetch data. And that's going to be coming from, you already know it. Let's check it out. /utils/fetch data. That's going to be it for now. So let's start creating our JSX. We're going to wrap everything with a box. Inside of that box, we're going to have 3 different new components. The first component is going to be the detail component. Then we're going to have the exercise videos component, like this, again, a self-closing component, and finally, similar exercises component. These are 3 components that we haven't yet created, and they're going to look like this, the videos right here, and then we have similar exercises, both for equipment and for target muscles. So what we can do is, as we always do, create those 3 new components. The first one being called details, or rather just detail.js, and then run RAFCE inside of it. We can also get the exercise videos.js, and again, run RAFCE. And finally, we're going to get the similar exercises.js and run RAFCE inside of it. Now we can go back to our exercise details page, and we can import those components right here by saying import detail from. That's going to be /components/detail. We can duplicate this 2 more times. The second time, we're going to import the exercise videos. And then for the last time, we're going to import the similar exercises. There we go. So now if we click on a specific exercise, let's go with sit-ups, we can see that these components are right here. But of course, we have to implement the JSX for them. So let's start with our exercise detail. The key thing is going to be to send the exercise detail data right here to our detail component. So let's go ahead and fetch it right away inside of our exercise detail component. We can do that by creating a few states. So right here, let's say use state. The first state is going to be exercise detail and set exercise detail, which is going to be set to an object or an empty object at the start. We also need to get the ID of the exercise, and we can do that by saying const in curly braces ID is equal to use params. This is going to give us access to that number that we're on right here in the URL. Great. So now that we have this state, we actually have to populate it. We can pass it right here, but of course it's going to be empty. So let's create a use effect so that we can populate it. That use effect is going to have a callback function inside of it, and it's going to have a dependency array that's going to have the ID inside of it, meaning we're going to recall this function whenever the ID changes. Inside of there, we can create a new function, const fetch exercises data, like this. And that's going to be an async function. There we go. Before we actually write the logic for it, we can immediately call it right here, fetch exercises data. Inside of here, we're going to have a lot of different API calls. So let's first set up the URLs of the APIs that we're going to call. Exercise db URL. That's going to be equal to, we can go back to RapidAPI. And right here, we can copy this URL right here. So that's going to be a string of https://exercisedb.p.rapidapi.com, and don't put the / afterwards. We're going to have one more API that we're going to use for our videos that you can see right here. And for that, we're going to use the YouTube search and download API. You can again click subscribe right here. It is completely free. And then we can copy the URL from here. So let's take it up to this point. And let's say const YouTube search URL. And that's going to be a string of this right here. Now that we have those URLs, we can actually make the API calls. I'm going to expand this just a bit so we can better see it. And let's start making a few calls. First, we need to get the exercise detail data, and that's going to be equal to await. Remember that fetch data function? It accepts two different things. It accepts the URL. So in this case, we can call our exercise DB URL like this, but we'll have to append something to it. We'll have to go inside of exercises and then /, and then we need to pass the ID of the exercise that we want to fetch, like this. And the second parameter is the exercise options, which contains that key to allow us to make that request. Now, once we fetch this data, we want to set it to the state. So set exercise detail. I think that's going to be it. And we can populate that with exercise detail data. There we go. And if you think about it, that's all that we need to do for now. We're going to focus for the YouTube videos later on. For now, we simply want to get this data right here. So we are calling it, we are setting it to the state, and we're passing it to the detail component. Now we can navigate to the detail component and implement the JSX for it. Inside of here, we can import the typography. We can also import the stack and the button. And these are coming from add_MUI/material. We're going to also import 3 different images: body, part, image from /assets/icons/bodypart.png. We can duplicate that 3 more times. The second one is going to be target image, and we can simply get the target.png. And the third one is going to be equipment, like this, image. And we can simply call that equipment, or rather fetch the equipment image. There we go. We don't necessarily have to say image right here. So this is also fine if you know what you're talking about. But just to differentiate these from components, we can use the image keyword later on. Now we know that we are getting the exercise detail as a prop because we're passing it right here to the detail component. And that exercise detail is going to contain additional values. So we can immediately destructure them at the top by saying const and then in curly braces is equal to exercise detail. In here, we're simply doing object destructuring. Now, before, we've noticed what does this exercise detail contains. It contains a body part. It also contains a GIF URL, or GIF, however you want to call it. It contains a name, a target, and the equipment. There we go. So now we don't have to say exercise detail.bodypart, exercise detail.gif URL. We can simply reference these variables by their name. Great. Now let's start creating the JSX. We're going to have one stack that wraps everything. That stack is going to have a gap equal to 60 pixels. We're going to also have some additional SX properties, such as flex direction is going to be on large devices set to row, and then usually it's going to be set to column by default. We're going to also have padding of 20 pixels, and we're going to also have the align items set to center. Inside of there, we want to render our image by saying img. We're going to provide the source equal to GIF URL, and we're going to also give it an alt, which is going to be the exercise name or simply name. We can set the loading to be set to lazy, And we can also give it a class name equal to detail-image. There we go. So now if we save this and go back, let's go to our app in development, and we can see something. So we see just an empty screen right here, but we cannot really see the GIF. So let's check if we properly imported that. I guess what we can do is console log the GIF URL to check if we are properly fetching it. Let's open up the inspect element, console, and it looks like it is undefined. So let's check if we can go back, and then if we can click on a specific exercise. Yep, it is still undefined. So we most likely have an error somewhere. We're passing in the exercise detail. In here, we're also calling it the exercise detail. And right here, we are setting the exercise detail. So all of that seems to be good to me. Let's see if we are getting any data from our API. So right here, I'm going to console log the exercise detail data. And if you put it in curly braces, it's going to let you know exactly what you're console logging. So if we go here, go to an exercise, it looks like our use effect is not getting called for some reason. Yep, we're not getting the line 20 of the exercise detail page. It is possible that we have some errors. So let's go to errors. And it looks like we have a not found 404. So maybe we misspelled something. And there we go. Exercises DB. No, this is looking good. Exercises right here. That's looking good as well. Oh, but it's going to be exercise. Yeah, so exercise DB, and then we have exercises. Yep, that seems all right. Where is this coming from? Exercise DB, exercises. We get a 404. Interesting. Let's see. Yeah, a 404. Let's try to do some other exercise. And the same thing happens. 404 not found. It looks like I've made a mistake right here. The API, if we properly look into it, let's get the exercise by ID, you're going to notice that it is exercises / exercise and then / ID. So we're missing the / exercise right here. This is not following the best REST API rules. So if you're creating your own APIs, it is enough to have just the plural of the name and then the number or the ID. You don't have to do what this guy or gal did. So simply say exercises and then 1. That is already clear enough. Anyways, we are back on the road, and now we have our exercise image right here, and we can proceed with the development. This is looking great. Let's go back to our detail component. And right here we have the image, but we're going to also have a few other things below the image. More specifically, we're going to have another stack right here. That stack is going to have the SX property with a gap on large devices. That gap is going to be set to 35 pixels. And usually, or rather on extra small devices, we can set that to 20 pixels. Inside of that stack, we're going to have a typography, and that typography is going to render the name of the exercise. Now, before styling it further, let's render all different typographies that we're going to have. So below this one, we're going to have another one, typography. And in here, we can say exercises, or rather, let's copy what we have from here. So this is on Gold's gym.netlify.app, or you can type it out by hand. I'm going to copy what we have here. And you can notice that we have some kind of basic demo text. Exercises keep you strong. And then in here, what we want to do is we want to render the exercise name. This is going to be the name right here. So what we can do is spread this out in multiple rows. And instead of 3-4 sit-up, what we can do is render the exercise name. So if we now remove this and save it, you can notice we have 45 side bend, which is the name, and then exercises keep you strong. 45 degrees side bend is one of the best exercises. This is looking good to me, but we can just add an empty space right here. So after the name, and we can do that, I guess, with a space like so. There we go. Now we can keep it going. Is one of the best exercises to target your, and then in here, we can use the target. There we go. So we know that it is for apps. It will help you improve your, and then in here, we can say mood and gain energy. This is going to be some basic text. I think this is already looking good. It's going to look even better once we style it. Maybe we can do that right now by simply giving a variant equal to something like h4 for the title, or in here it's even bigger, so we can use the h3. There we go. And we can use something like variant, maybe h5 will do. This is maybe too big, so maybe h6 will do. Yep, this is looking better already. There we go. You can maybe bold the name and the target, but this is fine as well. Now we want to show these three little cards, or let's say target muscle groups and the equipment that you need. So what we can do is we can create a new kind of array that we can loop over. So let's say const extra detail is going to be equal to an array where we have the first object. We can give it an icon equal to body part image and a name, which is going to be body part coming straight from an API. We can then duplicate this 2 times. For the second time, the icon is going to be the target image. And right here, we're going to have the target. And for the third time, the icon is going to be the equipment image. And right here, we can say equipment. Now we can loop over the extra detail right here by opening a dynamic block of code and saying extra detail dot map. We are going to get the item and we can instantly return something. So put parentheses right here. We can return a stack. That stack has to have a key because we're looping over it. So that's going to be the item.name. Direction is going to be set to row. Gap is going to be set to 24 pixels. And align items is going to be set to center. Inside of there, we want to render a button. So right here, a button, and that button is going to contain our image. The source of the image is going to be item.icon. If we go back, you can see that we have 3 of these images right here. Below our button, we're going to have a typography, and this typography is going to simply render the item.name. We can also give it a variant of h6, or maybe even higher, something like h5 should do. There we go. Let's style it just a bit. So we can give this button a few props. SX, that's going to be background. We can do something like hash FFF 2db. We can give it a border radius of 50% to make it into a circle. And we can set the width to be equal to 100 pixels, as well as the height to be equal to 100 pixels. If we save that, you can notice this is already looking better. For the image, we can give it an alt equal to body part. And we can also give it a style, which is going to be width of 50 pixels, as well as the height equal to 50 pixels. There we go. Perfect. And finally, for the typography, we can give it a text transform equal to capitalize. So now it's going to be capitalized and it's going to look just a bit better. Believe it or not, that's going to be it for our exercise detail. But now, of course, we have the exercise videos for which we're going to use the second API from the RapidAPI platform. And then we're going to do these similar exercises. So let's start with our exercise videos. For that, we have to go back to our exercise detail and actually make sure to fetch the data from the second API on our list. So how we can do that is we can first go to our utility file, fetchdata.js, and we need to copy the options for our second API, YouTube search and download. Right here, you can subscribe, and then you can copy this entire options object. There we go. We can paste it right here. We won't need the params, so we can remove that. We also won't need the URL. The only thing we need is a method and the headers, but we're going to change the key to the process environment so that only we know it and nobody else. There we go. And we're going to rename this to YouTube options. There we go. And of course, we can export it. So export const YouTube options. Now we can go back to exercise detail and we can make the second API call right here by saying const exercise videos data is equal to await. We call the same function, fetch data. Again, we need to call the YouTube search URL. And then we're going to do the / search. We need to provide the query equal. And then we need to search for exercise detail dot name, like this, exercise detail data dot name. This is going to give us the videos only about a specific exercise that we're currently looking the data for. And we want to pass the YouTube options as the second parameter so that we can actually make that call. The YouTube options are now also being exported from our utils fetch data. Perfect. Now that we have the data for it, let's add it to the state by using the use state snippet right here. And let's say exercise videos. At the start, set to an empty array. Right below, we can say set exercise videos to be equal to exercise videos data. There we go. And now we can send that data over to our exercise videos component. So exercise videos is equal to exercise videos. And we can also send the name of our exercise. That's going to be exercise detail dot name. There we go. So going to the exercise videos component, we can start implementing it right away. We already know that we are getting two different props, which are the actual exercise videos, and finally the name of the exercise. We can import a few things. We're already used to those. So that's going to be, let's do box, stack, and a typography. That's coming from add MUI / material. Inside of here, we can first return a box. And that box is going to have a few styles. So we can say SX, margin top. On large devices is going to be 200 pixels. And then on extra small devices, it can be something like 20 pixels. We can also give it a padding. So P is equal to 20 pixels. Inside of that box, we need to add a typography that's going to say something like this. Watch, name of the exercise, exercise videos. So let's create a typography. Let's give it a variant of something like H4. Let's also give it a margin bottom of 33 pixels. And let's paste that. Of course, we're going to replace the name of the exercise with the actual name coming from the props. So if we save that and go back, let's check it out. There we go. This is looking good. Maybe we can even use H3 for this. We can make this of a different color by creating a span element right here. That span is going to wrap our dynamic name property, and we can give it a style, which is going to be equal to color. Let's do something like FF2625, which is our basic color. And we can also use the text transform capitalize right here. And we can also use text transform equal to capitalize. Now, if we save that, this is already looking more like it. Below our typography, we want to loop over the exercise videos. So what we can do is create a stack element. That stack is going to have a few properties, such as justify content is going to be set to flex start. Flex wrap is going to be set to wrap. And then align items is going to be set to center. We're going to also provide some additional styles with the SX prop. So we can say flex direction is going to be set usually to column, but on large devices, it's going to be set to row. We can also give it a gap on large devices. That gap is going to be equal to 110 pixels, and usually on XS, it's going to be set to 0. There we go. Now, inside of here, we'll have to loop over the exercise videos. So let's open a dynamic block of code and say exercise videos, and then a question mark dot. We're using the question mark to make sure that this actually exists. And then we can say dot slice, because we first want to decide on how many do we actually want to take. If we do 0 to 3, that's going to be 3 videos. You can, of course, choose a larger number. And then we can map over it. We get each item or a video, and then we get the index. For each one of those, we want to return something. And that something is going to be an anchor tag, because each one of our videos is going to be a link to check it out on YouTube. Let's give it a key equal to index. Let's give it a class name equal to exercise-video. We can most importantly give it an href equal to, now we'll have to make this dynamic, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v for video is equal to item.video.video ID. This is where the URL of our video is hidden. We can also set the target to be equal to _blank to open it in a new tab, and we can give it a rel equal to no refer. That's recommended when using _blank. Of course, we won't be able to see anything yet because we have to add something inside of this anchor tag, and that's going to be an img tag with a source equal to item.video.thumbnails 0.url. We're getting this data from RapidAPI. We can also give it an alt tag equal to item.video.title. Now, if we save this, we of course crashed the website. Let's check out what is happening right here. Looks like exercise videos.slice is not a function. So looks like the exercise videos is undefined or it isn't yet populated. So what we can do is we can add an if statement right here and check if no exercise videos dot length. In that case, return loading like this. Now, if we save this, there we go. We're good to go now. We can see loading right here, but unfortunately, nothing loads. Maybe because we again have a typo in our search query. Looks like we're getting a 400 right here. You should provide at least query or next parameter. So we're maybe missing something while making the API call to get our videos. So let's check that out. It looks like I've made a mistake. This here was supposed to be query and not just queue. So now if we go back and reload the page, it's still loading, but this time I don't see any errors. So let's see if we are getting any data. To check that, I'm going to console log the exercise videos. So let's do that right here. Console log exercise videos. And we do get something, but it is hidden under the contents. Here is where the videos are, not simply under the exercise videos. So what we can do is back in the exercise details, instead of setting the state to exercise videos data, we need to do that and then dot contents with an S at the end. That's going to make sure to pass the actual videos. And you can see that we get a list of 20 videos right now. Now, again, if we reload, looks like we get other kinds of errors. Cannot read properties of undefined, reading 0, exercise videos line 29. So if we go right here, it looks like we're trying to fetch the videos, but we don't have them. So let's debug that together. That's the whole point of these videos, to teach you how to think and to teach you how to code on your own, not just by watching these videos. So 29 is the image right here. Let's check if we maybe misspelled something. Item.video.thumbnails. Looks like I misspelled thumbnails right here. So if we fix this, there we go. We get our YouTube videos of the 45 side bend exercises. They are wrapping in multiple rows, as you can see right now, but we can also see them in one row. So there we go, 45% side bend. And if we click right here, it's going to lead us to the YouTube video explaining that in more detail. Or if we want to watch a real person do it, we can see that right here. So this is working perfectly. We have created our exercise detail as well as the exercise videos right here. If you want to show 6 videos, the only thing you have to do is change the number right here, and now you can see more videos. Let's choose another exercise. For example, sit-ups. And right here, we have a lot of sit-up videos. That is looking great. The only thing that we can do is maybe add the name of that video and the creator. So let's do that right away. Right below our image, we can create a new box, and that box is going to contain a typography. That typography is going to render the item.video.title. There we go. And we can also make it a variant of something like H5. There we go. And we can set the color to be equal to 000, which is black. What we can also do is just duplicate this below and render the item.video.channel name. And this can be something like H6. And there we go. Now we have the title as well as the channel name of each video. The last step in our journey is to create the similar target muscle exercises and similar equipment exercises. This way, we'll know what we can do with no equipment, and we'll know what we can do to practice our abs as well, in this case. So let's go ahead and get started with that right away. A great thing about developing our similar target muscle exercises and similar equipment exercises is that we are already familiar with this component that we can see right here. If we go to our homepage, you can see something that looks just like that. So we'll be able to use the full powers of React and reuse these components. So to start off, we can go to our exercise detail and then hop onto the similar exercises. But before we do that, we'll have to, of course, first fetch them from the API. So to do that, we can make the third API call right here. So that's going to be const target muscle exercises data. And that's going to be equal to await fetch data. We're again going to have a template string where we're going to have the exercise DB URL at the start, /exercises, /target, and then we want to use the / one more time, exercise detail data dot target. So we want to get the similar exercises that target the same muscle group. And we need to provide the exercise options to be able to make that call. Great. And we're going to make one final call, so we can duplicate this right here. And that's going to be not target muscle, rather that's going to be equipment exercises. So exercises that use the same equipment. What we're going to have to change is instead of the target, we're going to say equipment right here. And also right here, instead of target, we're going to say equipment. And now we have to create 2 new states. And it looks like I misspelled equipment right here. So that's going to be equipment exercises data. Let's create the 2 new use states. So right here, use state, target muscle exercises, and set target muscle exercises. We can duplicate that and create equipment exercises, as well as set equipment exercises. There we go. So now we can use those states, and as we've always done, we can say set target muscle exercises to be equal to target muscle exercises data. And we can repeat the process right here. Set equipment exercises to be equal to equipment exercises data. Great. We're finally done with fetching and setting all the states, and we can pass that state into our similar exercises component. So we can pass the target muscle exercises is equal to target muscle exercises, as well as we can also pass the equipment exercises, and that's going to be equal to equipment exercises. Now, if we go to similar exercises, we can get those values as props. So target muscle exercises and equipment exercises. And that's going to be all that we need. We can also import a few things. That's going to be import, box, stack, and a typography from MUI material. And we can wrap everything with a box. So right here, we have a box. We can add some additional styles to that box. So SX, margin top is going to be on large devices, 100 pixels, and on extra small, it's going to be set to 0. Inside of there, we want to show something that looks like this. So if we go to Gold's Gym, we're going to have the similar, and then we need to render the lists right here through which we can scroll. So that's going to be a typography first. There we can say something like exercises that target the same muscle group. There we go. That's going to be it for now, and we can make that variant of something like H3, should be fine. Now below that, we want to render our stack component. That stack is going to have a direction equal to row, and it's going to have styles of padding is set to 2, and also position is set to relative. Inside of there, we want to loop over all exercises. So we can say if target muscle exercises dot length, and if that exists, meaning that there are some exercises, then we can show the horizontal scroll bar. So horizontal scroll bar. There we go. Did we import it at the top? I don't think we did. So we can say import horizontal scroll bar from / horizontal scroll bar, just like so. Of course, we have to pass some data to that horizontal scroll bar, and that's going to be data is equal to target muscle exercises. Now, if we save that and go back to our application, everything is gonna break. Yep, of course, that's gonna happen. So we might need to add some kind of loaders. So let's create a new loader component. Inside of our components, let's create a loader.js. Let's use a RAFCE, and we're going to import the stack component right here from add MUI / material. And we're going to also import the infinity spin, which is coming from react-loader-spinner. The only thing we have to do is wrap everything with a stack, give it a direction equal to row, a justify content equal to center, align items equal to center, and a width equal to 100%. And then we can render the infinity spin right inside of there with a color equal to gray. There we go. That's going to be it for our loader component. Now we can go back right here and we can import it. Import loader from / loader. We can say if target muscle exercises dot length, so if it exists, then we render the horizontal scroll bar like so. And we can say else right here, we render the self-closing loader component. Let's see if that's going to fix it for us. It still breaks, so let's go to the console. And it looks like objects are not valid as a React child. So the error occurred in a p tag. It looks like we're trying to render something that is an object. So let's see what we're trying to render. This error is actually happening in the horizontal scroll bar. I think that it expects some different kind of data here. So let's go to our horizontal scroll bar, and we might need to make just some slight adjustments. Before, we had cards that are for different body parts. So if we go back to our localhost, you can notice that we had these cards right here. But we're going to modify that slightly. So what we can do is we can import the exercise card from /exercise card. Because instead of looping through body parts, we now want to loop through these exercise cards. The only thing we have to do is, right here, send one additional prop, which is going to be is body parts. So are we displaying the body parts? So we can say if is body parts, then display the body part. This is a prop that we can send when we're calling the horizontal scroll bar inside of the home. So inside of the home, or more specifically inside of search exercises, we are calling our horizontal scroll bar, and we're going to pass a new prop called is body parts. This is going to let the horizontal scroll bar know that we want to show these guys right here. But if we are not sending that prop, as the situation is right here, where we want to scroll through exercise cards, then what we can do is say if is body parts, render the body part card, else we want to render something different. We want to render the exercise card, and we want to pass over the entire item. So now if we save that and click on a specific exercise, you saw the loader and then everything broke. Looks like the error is in the exercise card component. So if we check it out, instead of passing the item, we need to pass the exercise. Because if you go to the exercise card, you can see that that is what we are expecting. So now if we reload the page, you can see that it's loading, we get the videos, and then we get the exercises that target the same muscle group. They are loading right here. What we can do is go back to our exercises. What was it? Let's go to the page. That's going to be similar exercises component. And let's give this typography a margin bottom. So that's going to be MB equal to something like 2. There we go. Let's try with 5. There we go. Already looking much better. Now we're essentially just going to duplicate this entire part, the typography and the stack. The second time, we're going to say exercises that use the same equipment. There we go. And we want to loop over equipment exercises. So if equipment exercises exist, then simply pass the data as equipment exercises. And with that, we have exercises that target the same muscle group and exercises that use the same equipment. Now we can scroll through them, and this is looking great, as you can see right here. Phenomenal. As you can see, you can unleash the full React's power once you actually learn how to reuse components. We just reused our horizontal scroll bar as well as the actual exercise card. So this is phenomenal. With that said, we are getting close to building this phenomenal RapidAPI powered application. We are just missing the footer. So let's go ahead and create that footer component. I think we already have it right here. We just have to implement the JSX for it. And since we've already done a lot of stuff, this is now going to be quite easy. We can go ahead and import the box, stack, and typography, as we already used to, from add_MUI/material. We can also import the logo, which is coming from /assets/images/logo1.png. Let's wrap everything in a box. Let's give it a margin top, 80 pixels, to divide it from the content a bit, and let's set the BG color to be equal to #FFF3F4. Now if we save that, we can barely see it at the bottom, so let's add a stack inside of it. The stack right here is going to have a gap equal to 40 pixels, It's going to have the SX property of align items is equal to center. I think we didn't even need to use the SX property for this. We can simply say align items is equal to center, and we can set the padding X equal to 40 pixels, as well as padding top equal to 24 pixels. Okay, we still cannot see anything, but let's add a logo inside of the stack by creating the self-closing image tag with the logo in there. We can also give it a width, which is going to be equal to 200 pixels, and the height, which is going to be equal to, let's do something around 40 pixels. There we go. So we can see the logo right here at the bottom. Now let's create a typography. So right here, typography. Let's say something like we say right here, made with love by JavaScript Mastery. Let's paste it right here. Of course, feel free to use your own name right here. And let's make that variant equal to something like H5. We can also give it a padding bottom. So PB is equal to 40 pixels. And also margin top, something like 40 pixels as well. And there we go. That margin top is a bit too much, so maybe something like 20 pixels will do. There we go. Also, I am missing a P right here. I just noticed that. So now this is looking even better. And that's going to be it for our footer. So now if we collapse everything, close all of the currently opened files, we can give our application one final look. Of course, this is just a design that we quickly created. I want to encourage you to change the design, make the most out of the APIs that RapidAPI offers. Go to their platform and try out some other APIs, or merge our application with some additional exercise or gym APIs. Maybe add a body calculator, maybe add something else as well. Provide extended functionalities to your users. Deploy your application to the internet, and then share it on social media platforms and put it on your portfolio. That is how you can get more clients or potential employers to notice you. Share your app on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and tag JavaScript Mastery. We will gladly share your own implementation of the application. With that said, we are done with the exercise details page as well as the homepage, and all of this is looking great, and it is fully functional. So we can explore a few additional exercises. This one looks interesting. We can see how other people are doing it, and we can see some similar target muscle exercises as well as equipment exercises. I just noticed I'm looking at my previous finished site, but this one should behave absolutely the same. So if we go here, we get the loading, and we can see all of the exercises right here. This is perfect. I am incredibly happy with the finalized product, and now the final part, of course, is to deploy the application to the internet. Using React, that is as easy as it can be. Let's open up our terminal, stop it from running by pressing Ctrl+C and then Y, and then run npm run build. This is going to create the optimized production build of our React application in about 30 seconds. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll be right back. Once the build has been created, we can go to netlify.com. Netlify allows you to quickly deploy your React applications. Once you log in, you'll go to Sites, and then right here, you can drag and drop your build folder. So let's reveal in File Explorer. You can drag and drop the build folder right here, and in a few seconds, your website is going to be deployed. It's still being deployed, and there we go. Before we check it out, let's go to Domains, and let's go to Options, and edit the site name to something like JSM Gym. Of course, feel free to use your own name. You can go to jsm-gym.netlify.app, and there we go. Our application with our two APIs is now deployed and is looking great. If you have any problems with the finalized application, make sure to check the finalized code that's going to be linked in the description. With that said, Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And huge thanks to RapidAPI, not only for sponsoring this video, but for creating a phenomenal hub of thousands of APIs to choose from. It gives you power to create thousands of different applications that you can use for your portfolio or work. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, and if you love this video, I would strongly suggest that you check out jsmastery.pro for even more comprehensive courses on web development, more specifically React and Web3 development. If you want a complete masterclass experience, we have that as well, so check it out. We're looking forward to having you there. Once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.